It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.
Check out great deals throughout the store at Safeway. This week at Safeway, get mega packs of USDA Choice boneless beef chuck roast for $3.97 per pound with digital coupon, limit 2 packages. Plus, Hass avocados are 10 for $10 member price. And get Fuji apples for just 77 cents per pound with digital coupon. Also this week at Safeway, get selected varieties of Lucerne milk gallons for the member price of $3.99 each when you buy 2. Visit Safeway.com or head into your local store for more deals.
The pop culture field, what's going on, folks? Welcome to the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast, sitting right at that intersection, saluting specifically at weapons, action, the military, and paying its respects to pop culture. That's right. Today is an episode all about the brass.
That's
yes.
Right. The above-the-line people, as we might say in the entertainment industry, the officers, folks.
Yes, folks. The ones that get no respect, but all the respect.
Love them or hate them, you can't get rid of them, folks. It's a part of the chain of command.
Absolutely. Military officers. You might pump your fists in the air with pride or cringe at the idea of brass getting lost in the woods. Depending on your reaction, you might have commissioned yourself or had a loved one in the officer corps or done the right thing and enlisted. Whichever it is, we don't care and we hate you. No, that was a joke. But all jokes aside, officers are at the core of all critical mission planning as well as leading their soldiers into combat. So this episode is all about the officers we see in pop culture, and there is quite a bit of them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
There's a lot, yeah. Yeah. So all of you probably can think of like officers that you've encountered in your pop culture journey, whether it's video game, television, or movies. I know we're all thinking of David Schwimmer's character from Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
You know,
we are.
Yeah, so we've got some positive examples and some negative examples.
Absolutely,
we didn't just want to go all negative on officers.
Yeah,
man.
no,
They're an important part of the military.
Exactly. Real talk. You know, I had the pleasure of working with some really good officers, and I know when we've been doing like shift fire episodes, the interrogating, we gotten some questions about like, have you ever experienced like the typical quote unquote butter bar officer? And it's what I said on the show was I said there's a reason stereotypes exist, and that stereotype unfortunately totally exists in the Army, because I mean you got a guy coming out of college, thinks his shit don't stink because he got a degree, and then he's immediately placed in charge of a platoon of people, right? And that's got to do something to your complex there, right? So even with no combat experience or no experience with actual leading, you are thrown in the lion's den, and some people handle it really humbly, and some people,
but I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, my time in the Ranger Regiment, I had worked with some amazing officers, and in my opinion, the best officers were enlisted first.
Oh, so they knew what it was like.
They know what it's like. Therefore, when they give a order or they give, you know, a duty to do, they've been in the shoes of the people doing it before. So that kind of gives them a different perspective of, you know, the effects that giving these commands will do on morale. So like I had a really good officer who was prior service enlisted, and he was such a cool guy. And, you know, I remember he was in charge of our platoon, and the first day he came, he's just like, hey guys, I don't know shit. You know, he's like, I'm here to do the officer work, but I know you guys are the ones that are going to be doing everything. So you let me know what you need, and I'll do my best to do it. And I will never tell you. I mean, he's like, and I will never give you something that I have no idea what's going on. He's like, I'll always make sure that, you know, at the lowest level knows what's going on. So in my opinion, he was a really good officer. And then every PL that I had was like solid. They were shit hot. But I mean, that's coming on the special operations side. What about officers you've worked with?
I've had good experiences. I remember my first experience with an officer was the company commander for my basic training unit. And I remember it was so funny because he was a schlubby looking dude.
Really?
Like, yeah, he was a little tubby, and he had a receding hairline and glasses. I mean, he was.
What's wrong with receding hairlines?
Nothing. I think if you can do a mullet, I'd say go for that because party in the back, business up front.
Sure.
I just remember us like in the stress position of holding our duffel bags above our heads in a semi squat. And just like suffering. This was like the first couple of moments of basic training. And he just starts like, all right, gentlemen, we're going to tell you where you're going to be for your platoons. Listen up. But I had a positive, impression of him. Like, I feel like one thing I learned is that I actually have a friend who years after I was gone, became the company commander temporarily for my exact same basic training unit, the 1st to the 50th Infantry Training Division.
You're 150?
Yeah, 1st to the 50th.
Yeah, I was 150.
Really?
Yeah.
At Fort Benning?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's so crazy, man.
Yeah. Do you remember what company?
No.
I think I was Delta. I think I was Delta Company. Delta 150.
No, Delta 150. I can't remember. I'd have to look at the guide on. There's a picture of me with the guide on. And I'll have to look at it. But it was first
platoon Widowmakers, dude. What's up?
That's awesome. That's so great. It's a small world and even smaller military. But that was a positive experience. I don't know that I ever had too many negative experiences with officers. At least if I did, I've erased them from my mind. And of course, always
trauma blocked.
Yeah, trauma blocked. Always worth an honorable mention. Captain Kornichuk from the first team I was on when I first got to group. Super cool dude, Canadian. I don't know if you can tell from the name, but he was actually in the Canadian Army first, and I think he immigrated to the United States and became a captain on a team and stuff. And he was just one of those like chill dudes.
Yeah,
you know? Really pleasant, not throwing his weight around, not trying to act like he knew better.
I like how you brought up your basic training commander, because honestly, that was like the first experience that I had as well with officers.
Yeah.
But mine wasn't tubby. Mine was like your ideal infantry guy. I remember he was a shorter guy, but he was like built. And I remember he had a really high voice like this. And he'd be like, and he would do the PT with us, and he'd be like, man, as infantry, you got to be the best. And I remember he was cool. Yeah, he was a cool guy. He definitely set the pace for like a good, what infantry should be like, and I could tell he took it very seriously. So that was a good example. At my first company commander at regiment, he was a badass. He was super cool. I'm not going to say his name because I'm pretty sure he's doing some like black ops shit now. Because like after he left command, he like joined the CIA and like I'm pretty sure he's ground branch now.
Wow.
So,
nice.
But he was the coolest, and he loved me for some reason. He would always be like, "Faf." Faf, how you doing? I'm like, good sir. What do you need? He's like, nothing. Just keep it up. Yeah, he's super cool, man. I miss him. But yeah, no. And then I had another company commander that wasn't so cool. But whatever, man.
Well, you know what's funny, man, is I can remember Captain Kornichuk from the first team I was on. I cannot for the life of me recall to my mind the face or the name of the captain I was on for the second team I was on. I remember Tom Williams, who's retired now. He was my team sergeant, the senior NCO.
Sure.
But I can't even picture in my mind who our captain was on our team.
Well, we got a new commanding officer when we went to Germany, and this is how I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth for him, because we were in Germany. Everybody was going out. They gave us one day to go out, wreak havoc. And we were all at this karaoke bar just getting wasted. First sergeant was there. I dedicated a Dio. I sang Holy Diver. And I'm like, this one's for fucking first sergeant blank for blank. And he was giant. And his head he looked like the pale orc from The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was a big heavy metal guy. Like I'd see him at the bars, and he would come up to me and be like, Faf! And he'd literally pick me up like a child. And I'd be like, please. I'm like, I know I'm short, but please put me down. He's like, this is very emasculating. But yeah, we were at the bars, and the new CO was there, and we had to jump the next day. And I went up to him, and I ordered 2 shots of Jägermeister, and I go, sir, I put it right in front of him. We're at the bar, and I'm like, sir, welcome to Bravo Company. Let's fucking take a shot, And he just like looks at it, kind of like whatever, and he goes, and all officers have this voice. I don't know what's the deal, but he's like, it's not like we have a jump tomorrow. And I looked at him, and usually the saying is, when the beer flows, the rank goes. And I literally looked at him, and I was like, just fucking take the shot, sir.
That's
But the first sergeant was right behind me. He like had my back, and he's like, "Yeah, stop being a bitch."
Oh my
But he was just kind of like a stickler, you know. He wasn't like for the boys. Like if I did that to my original CO, he'd be like, "You want another?" But anyways, that's just some experience with officers. We have a list of some officers portrayed in pop culture, some based off real life people.
Yeah.
Just like our first one here, Patton.
Yeah.
1970. Recently watched this movie, and by recently, I mean literally 2 days ago. Took 3 hours of my day. Only movie that I've ever seen that literally has an intermission in it.
Yeah. That and Lawrence of Arabia. Those are the only two that I can think of.
Really? I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia, so I guess I'm a terrible film
No,
student.
you're getting there, man. I haven't even seen Patton, man. You're going to have to take the lead on this one because I've seen that first speech. That speech is
very
iconic.
famous. He's standing in front of the American flag. He's got all his medals on his helmet with the 3 stars.
Yep, it's almost a one shot, I think. I think it's one take almost.
Yeah, but I mean, so I'll just read the synopsis I have. So Patton tells the tale of General George S. Patton, real man, famous tank commander of World War II. The film begins with Patton's career in North Africa and progresses through the invasion of Europe and the fall of the Third Reich. Side plots also speak to Patton's numerous faults, such as his temper and tendency toward insubordination, faults that would prevent him from becoming the lead American general in the Normandy invasion, as well as to his being relieved as a occupation commander of Germany. So you definitely see in the film that he's got some ifs, right? So like he was known for having they said like fire and ice. He was a man of God, but very vulgar.
Oh, jeez.
So it like, and you can like run with that as much as you want, but he would be like, there was one scene in the movie where they're bringing in like these priests and church command to like, you know, bless the troops and whatnot. And one of the guys was like, "General, I notice you have a Bible sitting on your bedside. You actually get time to read that thing?" And he's like, Yes, I do. Every goddamn day." So, I mean, that kind of paints the picture. And then in the synopsis where his faults, he has a very big temper towards cowardice. So there's a scene cowardice. He does not like.
He does not like cowards.
He does not like cowards. So there's a scene where he's, you know, I think it's the invasion of Sicily, which actually, even though it was successful, a lot of people died, and it was because Patton was the field commander there. And he would literally just push troops to their death. He was like, "I don't care how many men it takes. We're taking this island. But there's a scene when he's like giving Purple Hearts to all the men that were in the infirmary. And like he's sitting there, and there's this one soldier that's like sitting in the bed, and he's like crying and whatnot. And he's just like, "What's going on, son?" And he's just like, "My nerves, like I can't go back out there." He's just like, I can't do it. And he like stands up, and he's like, "You're a fuck," instead of being like...
Oh, not to be like, "It's all right,
yeah, it's all right, son. Like, nerves get the best of everybody. You just, you know, remember your training." No, he, like, gets up and he's like, "You're a fucking coward." He's like, "There will be no cowards in my army." Wow. And he's like, These men here, they're heroes. They died. They're like, they got injured on the battlefield, and nothing's wrong with you." And they're like, "Someone take him and put him." He's like, "Get him back on the front lines." And then he's like crying, and Patton like slaps the shit out of him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he like slaps this guy as he's crying, and he like knocks his helmet off and everything. And like it turned into this big political thing where it's just like Patton just slapped one of his soldiers.
Oh my gosh.
And so that like kind of kept him from getting the full command of the Normandy invasion. So he had to like literally beg and plead with the other general, with Ike Eisenhower.
Yeah, Dwight T. Eisenhower.
Yeah, because he was literally the best tank commander they had. He was the best field commander they had in World War II. But just because he was, you know, he had such methods that he was like, "I don't want you." So he had to like beg and plead to even just be in the action, because they were going to keep him back in Britain.
Wow.
Yeah. But a character nonetheless. I mean, he was going fist to fist with Rommel in Africa.
Yeah.
And like did some research on Rommel.
Hot dog, yeah.
And like he's got some famous quotes that I had no idea. So when you say, remember when he said that one time that you're like, no plan ever what is it? No plan ever survives first contact.
Yeah.
That's a Rommel saying.
That's a Rommel saying.
Yeah, so that's a German Nazi general saying.
Wow.
No plane ever survives first contact. And then, but yeah, so basically Patton, the film's super long, but yeah, it goes through Africa up until, the invasion of Sicily, up until Normandy and D-Day. But like, yeah, the guy's a character. But you could tell that there's a common theme, which we mentioned in a previous episode, that officers are very, like, they say they're for the men, but in reality, it's all for the glory. Just like being the conqueror. So
yeah, it can. There's something about being an officer. I don't know if it's like
at least a very high officer,
right? When you get up into those ranks and stuff, it becomes less and less about combat and strategy and all that kind of stuff, and doing what's good for the men, and more about, like you said, it becomes like almost like a political game, or like a popularity contest.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
It's all about the glory. They want to be the ones that conquered, Germany. They want to be the ones that maneuvered their troops regardless of it. But it's funny because like Montgomery, who is the commanding field marshal for the British soldiers, they were like going toe to toe. Like instead of working together, they were like working against each other because they wanted to be the first one to take that country, or to take that city, which is a stronghold. And even though they were like, the U.S. was supposed to be supporting the Brits as they moved up, and the U.S. was given the job of just basically holding down their left flank as they mobilized up, Patton was like, nah, screw that. He's like, we're taking that city because it's us. He's like, we're Americans.
Oh,
and
man.
instead of being, it's funny, there's a quote, and I hope I don't butcher this, but he's like, as he's being told to stand down and let the Brits pretty much push up and cover the flank, and that came from Eisenhower, and he's like, well, that's what happens when you think like an ally and not an American.
Oh.
But yeah, Patton, it's if you've got the time, it's got so many motifs that you can tell people took a lot. Like the soundtrack, I didn't realize, Mandalorian, how it goes, woo, woo, woo.
Oh, really?
They took that from Patton.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's like the soundtrack of Patton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, this kind of sounds like, what is this? That's Mandalorian. And I'm like, oh my God, they took this like kind of, classic just like horn noises from Patton.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. The I haven't seen Patton, but I did see a long time ago, there was a TV movie, Ike Countdown to D-Day, which Tom Selleck plays General Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And the only scene with Patton is the scene where he like comes in, basically he's told him like, we're going to keep you back.
Yeah.
And Patton, for all his bravado and stuff like that, starts to fall apart. He's like, you can't, please don't.
No, he is literally a soldier.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't keep me back, It's
funny because like as they are conquering Germany, like they do the last push, and like the German command center is like burning all their documents and everything because they're about to surrender and being taken over. One of the guys that has basically been with Patton, like fighting Patton and strategizing against him since Africa, has like a picture of him, and he's just like,
it's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.
Check out great deals throughout the store at Safeway. This week at Safeway, get mega packs of USDA Choice boneless beef chuck roast for $3.97 per pound with digital coupon, limit 2 packages. Plus, Hass avocados are 10 for $10 member price. And get Fuji apples for just 77 cents per pound with digital coupon. Also this week at Safeway, get selected varieties of Lucerne milk gallons for the member price of $3.99 each when you buy 2. Visit Safeway.com or head into your local store for more deals.
he's like, you're going to be nothing without war. And then he says some like crazy angelic, super like German officer, very cool phrase. But it pretty much meant he's just like, when this battle's over, you are going to die. Because all you have to your name is war. So if there's no war, he's like, you're going to die.
No purpose.
You have no purpose.
Wow.
And then he throws Patton's picture in the furnace. Yeah. But no, Patton, it was a really good one. What a strong personality. And that kind of brings me to this next movie, which also had a very strong personality, but on a different accord. We've mentioned this before, unless you want to throw one in there. If you don't mind me just going straight into this one.
No, go ahead, Meg, because I haven't seen this one either, and it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah. So War Machine. We've mentioned it before, but I don't think we really paid it some mind, but I actually watched it in full the other day, and it's pretty good. So you have It's a satire comedy, but it's based off of what happened to General Stanley McChrystal, who was in charge of Afghan forces.
Yeah.
A Rolling Stones article came out about General McChrystal, and it basically said he was like talking shit about Obama at the time, and that his officers were like just going on a booze cruise around Europe, and basically just like it cost him his job.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's a satirical comedy just about like who's gonna win Afghanistan. So basically they bring in General Glenn McCannon, and his background is cool. He's Special Forces, Ranger qualified.
Yeah, I remember his name came up when I was in because I think he was credited with killing Zarqawi, who was the leader of Al Qaeda in Iraq at the time.
I'm pretty sure he was in USASOC too, as like a general of USASOC when I was in.
4-star general, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely heard of McChrystal, but he got relieved of his Afghanistan command after that Rolling Stone article came out. So basically the movie is Brad Pitt plays General Glenn McCannon, which is obviously McChrystal, and he's sent to Afghanistan to quote-unquote clean up the situation after 8 years in the country, and he finds himself among tired soldiers and disillusioned politicians eager to leave. In a situation he feels his mission is to quote-unquote win the war, something deemed impossible by everyone around him. So he had a great reputation. He was kind of like Mattis, like loved by the men.
Yeah.
He was basically the pinnacle of infantry. There was like a story where every morning he had a Spartan routine. He would run 7 miles every single morning, regardless. And he ran with like this weird running form because he's like he was so old and gnarled that his hand always made like a claw. So like he would run like this weirdo, but he would run 7 miles every morning. We've all heard like stories of like big brass or like sergeant majors. Like Sergeant, is it Merrill? No, I'm sorry, that's an old Ranger. But there's I'm blanking right now.
My Sergeant Major, if you want to talk about old knurled Sergeant Majors, my Sergeant Major used to work out with us when we were, in Iraq, up in Mosul, and he was old gnarled dude. He would talk. He was the one who wouldn't let me wear a boonie cap because he said boonie cap was only for the jungle.
Yeah,
so he never let me wear it. But he was an old gnarled dude. You could tell that he still wanted to go out there. When we got ambushed, the one story I have about getting ambushed, he was there with us, and we had the comms problem. So he just got out of the MRAP and walked out in the open to the next vehicle.
Like he didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
The one I was talking about was Sergeant Major, now retired, Command Sergeant Major retired, Merritt. And he had a crazy reputation in Ranger Regiment because he was Sergeant Major of Rangers for a long time, and then he would run barefoot in Fort Benning, and he would go on like 7 to 9 mile runs barefoot on the asphalt. And there was a famous story that he would run with his dog, and his dog fell out, and he ended up carrying his dog back because he basically outran his dog, and he's like, "This dog's fucking useless." Yeah. But yeah, there's like real life people that we all know or have heard stories of that, kind of symbolize Glenn McCannon in this War Machine movie. But pretty much it's like they bring him over to Afghanistan, and the movie opens up with them all in the airport, like walking, and they're like, usually the way Afghanistan went, when there's a guy that can't do the job, he's fired, and they bring in someone that they think can. And then that's when it like shows Brad Pitt like walking in the airport. And the movie ends when he gets fired, and it's like, just like with the guy that can't do it, they bring in another guy who can. And it shows another general like walking in the airport. It's a very entertaining movie, but they bring him in to basically clean up the situation in Afghanistan, but Afghanistan's a mess, right?
Yeah.
And they tell him, no more troops. Like, you need to figure out how to win this war with no more troops. But after his analysis of the country, he's like, I need 100,000 troops. Or I need like 50,000 more troops or something like that. And they're like, absolutely not. They're like, you have to go get them from NATO. He's like, you need to ask NATO. He's like, we'll give you 50,000 troops, but you need to supplement the rest through NATO. So he basically just goes on a European kind of tour to try to convince these countries to give them men.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the movie is really entertaining, but then you can tell that, I think McChrystal kind of got screwed over because obviously his admin team was like a bunch of characters and they're the ones drinking, but he didn't drink and shit.
Okay.
And I think it was just a non-tactical move to bring that Rolling Stone reporter along for the ride. Because he ruined his career. But McChrystal's always had a really good reputation with the men. But he would, I feel like he had the right idea. It's just when you try to combine like politics with war fighting, it's not going to work out.
Not going to work out, man. That's been I think that's been true for a long time, at least in American history. Politics getting in the way of winning wars or doing whatever, man.
Yeah, but you could tell that there was extreme similarities between Patton and this general.
No,
because they were the same. You know, they wanted the same thing. It was about the glory. They wanted to win.
Okay.
He's like, I want to win Afghanistan.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a war. We're not just going to leave. He's like, we're going to win by any means necessary. So
if only.
War Machine, I would check it out, man. I think it was really entertaining. It was good. And the whole movie's officers. The entire movie's officers. It just shows them, and they're all crazy. There's like a current SEAL in his admin. There's like an XO. They're all Ranger qualified, but like, man, oh man, I would not want to be that high of brass because it's literally a popularity contest mixed with like a political, representative, mixed with a leader, mixed with everything.
Yeah, it's not like a stand-up fight or like a troop kind of movement kind of thing. It's like a bunch of politicking and stuff too.
Because like Afghanistan in the movie, they're like, we're not here to kill these people. He's like, we are not here. We are humanitarians at this point. And he's like talking to a platoon of Marines that are at like a very not good part of Afghanistan. And he's like sitting there talking to this platoon, and they've been like getting the shit kicked out of him and whatnot. And like one of the soldiers is just like completely sick of it, And he's like, sure. He's like, you're telling us as a humanitarian, and like, but how? He's like, how do we know who to help when the enemy's dressed like the people we need to help? And he's like, I don't understand what you're saying. He's like, we can't help these people because these people don't want to help. They want us to leave. So how are we supposed to help them? And he's just like, figure it out. You like can't give this guy an actual good answer because you can tell the Marines like philosophically been reflecting about like the presence in Afghanistan and whatnot. Because I mean, let's be real, they do this combat sequence where like they're fighting and they shoot a 40 mic to take down an insurgent, but accidentally blow up a kid. And like the general flies in, and he's like the Marines are obviously there, and he's like trying to give them money and stuff, and they're talking to the rest of the villagers, and he's like, anything you need, just let us know. We're gonna build schools, we're gonna build we're gonna build roads. And the villagers are like, we like the idea of roads and we like the idea of schools, but literally we just want you to leave. And he's like, we're not leaving until we help you. But yeah, no, War Machine was a good one. I really liked that. But
I'll have to check that one out. I'll have to
check it out,
to
dude.
My list. My ever-growing list.
There you go. So what do you got?
Well, I got one that I think we've all seen this past year, and that's Maverick, baby, from Top Gun Maverick, man.
Top Gun Maverick.
I don't know what
the coolest
captain, the longest running captain apparently, because by 30 years into his career, he's still a captain. He's in 03. But because you just can't get him out of that seat, man.
No,
because he was made to fly.
Made to fly, man.
I'm trying to think of like aspects of officers that we want to see, and like because you're watching the movie. I think the big thing is obviously like, not only is he gonna he's like, how do I transfer everything that I am and everything I know onto these people? Because that's what he's there to do. He wants to just fly. And so he doesn't want a leadership position. I think that's kind of how part of his story in the movie. But he has to, and that's kind of what his scene with like Val Kilmer's about, it's like they need you to transfer your knowledge.
I mean, the one thing I've realized about Officer Corps, it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are at the job. They need to promote you up. It's all about taking the next job and, filling out your OER, which is your officer evaluation report, and getting good rapport and getting, you getting referred for promotion and just taking, a desk job and then getting a higher job and a higher job and a higher job. It's not necessarily if you're good because, enlisted, if you're good, they kind of want you there, right? Or at least in a position to where you can effectively help. But with the officers, it's all about progression. It's all about career development. Yeah. So, I mean, in Top Gun Maverick, it's like, he's the guy for the job. Yeah. So what good does it do to promote this guy and like bring in someone, that with no experience, because he's the only one in the movie that actually has flown in combat, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, what good does it actually do? And then obviously you have like, there's people that can do the job, and there's people that can do the job but can't teach the job.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, do you make those people, you take them out of the seat and try to make them teach when they're not good teachers, or what?
It's funny, you talk about career progression. when I got to my first team, before Captain Cornerchuck came in, the previous captain was still there. And, in Special Forces, it's a rule that captains have 2 years on a team, and then they have to move on.
They have to go.
It's like a rotational thing, and I feel kind of bad for him in that regard, because when you're on a captain, you're just a dude on the team, and you are doing everything that everybody else is doing. You're going out on missions and all that kind of stuff, because rank doesn't really, we're all kind of moving together. And I remember that captain. I remember I was voluntold to go to his going away party. I'm like, I don't know this guy. I was kind of selfish back then anyway. I'm like, I don't want to go to a team thing. I want to go and play video games. Yeah. But he cried. Like, he was really sad.
They don't want to go, man.
Yeah, man.
I'll tell you, I had 3 platoon sergeants, but I had 5 PLs. Yeah, they go every year, every single year. Platoon sergeants tend to stay enlisted side. But yeah, no, the officer, it's all about cycling you off to the next job.
That's wild, man. I feel kind of bad for him, because obviously he had built up a good relationship with the people and stuff that were there. But yeah, Top Gun, I mean...
it needs no explanation. The movie's absolutely amazing.
The movie... One of the best movies of the year.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, by far.
So fun, so refreshing, so fresh, so face.
Did it perfectly. Yeah. Did a sequel of a movie from the 80s perfectly.
I know how
40
to do
years
it,
later.
I'm sure they're going to do another one in another 20 years. And Tom Cruise will use computers to look exactly the same.
Exactly.
And he'll have the same body, too.
Yeah, totally the same body. Yeah. But moving right on, this one was an older one that I ended up watching. And you told me you've seen this movie, so that's great, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, man. No, this Hamburger Hill, 1987.
Sure.
We talked about this actually in our previous episode when we were talking about Kill Shot.
Yeah.
But also
Private Dovey.
a crack team of commandos, a classic, like a lot of young guys, like Don Cheadle's in this.
Yeah, and then a young
Dylan
McDermott's in it, which honestly, I thought he was just an American Horror Story actor. I thought that's where he came out.
He had a long career before that.
And didn't realize, but he was in it, and I was like, oh my God, is there going to be any homosexual contact in here? Just because American Horror Story. But I was like, nope, just infantry being infantry, I guess. But yeah, specifically the officer that I wanted to talk about in Hamburger Hill is Lieutenant Terry Eden. And he kind of fills out the stereotype. That he's just like, okay, well, we just talked about career progression, like officers coming and going all the time, and he becomes the new PL of this 101st platoon, and he gets there, and he's never had combat experience, and like his main goal right when he gets there is just administrative work. He's like making them fill out their life insurance like cards and their contact home and like their mail, and he's doing such like, and he's doing such like basic PL things that everyone thinks officers do, which is like obviously making sure the men are getting their mail, because everyone knows, according to the Army doctrine, that mail is one of the 5 morale.
Yes.
One of the 5 boosters of morale.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like making sure, but he actually has no combat experience, and he's just like, you can tell when they get pushed out to the quote unquote valley. He's like, I have no idea what's going on, and he's just like super like kind of. He has to lead these men. Like, he's expected to lead these men, but there's men that he's leading that have been in this before and know much more and have much more experience, but yet he's supposed to be like the face. And you can tell that just by looking at him, he's like, what did I get myself into? Did
he end up having kind of an arc or a story, like, or does he never change in the movie, or does he kind of wise up after a while?
He after I think like the 4th or 5th assault up the hill, he gets hit by a I think it was either a grenade or something, and he is like on the radio trying to make a fires call, and he's kind of talking like this. Like before, he's like, fire mission, requesting fire mission, and the grenade goes off. He's like, fire mission, and then one of the sergeants comes up on him, and he's like, sir, your arm, and he like looks down, and his arm's missing. And he's like, oh.
Oh my God!
So I don't know I don't know if he dies or he gets like medevaced out of there. But I mean, most of the guys that got injured ended up dying anyways, like the medic in the movie. But I think it was worth mentioning just because he kind of fills out that stereotype. I think of like a brand new cherry lieutenant that just gets thrown in the mix and is expected to lead, but has never led before.
Oh, you know what, man? If I could jump to another one real quick, you just kind of made my brain do a connection. It's kind of towards the bottom, but you knew it was coming, folks. You knew this day would come when the return would occur. But speaking of inexperienced officers, Lieutenant Gorman, baby, from Aliens.
Oh my God.
He is the lieutenant.
Go off, Queen.
The
Go
commander of the drop of the Colonial Marines, and he talks a big game, but then on the way down during the drop, this Vasquez asks him, how many drops is this for you? And he's like, it's like, he's like 38, or 28, simulated. She's like, how many combat drops? He's like, 2, including this one. So he has had one actual mission, including this one. And then you can see when they get to sub-level 3 and things start falling apart and they lose communications, he's like, first of all, he hamstrings them, right? He tells them to only go to flame units because they're underneath the heat exchangers and they can't fire real rounds, because they'll rupture the heat exchangers of the atmospheric processors, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm still alive right now.
You're so alive,
thriving. And so he hamstrings him, and then he's like, I told him to fall back, and then Ripley's like, you got to do something. He's like, I told him to fall back. I told him, and she's like, do something, and he starts to freak out,
freezes up,
can't
make a decision.
Yep. Yeah. And then Ripley takes charge and stuff, and so but the reason I put him on the list was because he, as if I like anything, it's a good character arc.
Yeah.
And he has an arc because he realizes his mistake, and he...
It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.
Check out great deals throughout the store at Safeway. This week at Safeway, get mega packs of USDA Choice boneless beef chuck roast for $3.97 per pound with digital coupon limit 2 packages. Plus, Hass avocados are 10 for $10 member price. And get Fuji apples for just 77 cents per pound with digital coupon. Also this week at Safeway, get selected varieties of Lucerne milk gallons for the member price of $3.99 each when you buy 2. Visit Safeway.com or head into your local store for more deals.
He pushes
Does he
forward.
redeem himself?
He does redeem himself when they are making their escape. Him and Vasquez fall behind, and she gets injured, and she can't crawl. She gets like acid on her leg, and they're in the tunnels together, the vents together, and they're surrounded by all sides. The aliens are closing in, and so he takes a grenade and he pops it. She's like, "You always were an a-hole, Gorman." And he pops that grenade, and then they both put their hands on top of it and just wait for it to go off, and boom, it just goes off. And so he
gets redeemed.
Vasquez falls behind, and him and Hicks are there. He's like, go get out of here. He goes to rescue her, and he's pulling her along, trying to help her, but then they end up blowing themselves up. So it's a good death. Lieutenant Gorman ends up redeeming himself in the end there.
Well, that's good. Good for you, Lieutenant Gordon. Way to break the stereotype there. But speaking of another officer that, on a movie we've talked about before, but back in early PCFM days, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. Dude. Man, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Charlie, don't surf.
Yep.
We're
taking that beach. Yeah.
This is an iconic character, Robert Duvall. A young Robert Duvall. I feel like Robert Duvall has always been 58 years old, no matter how old he is. But he looks young, man, and he is out there. And like the narration goes, he's like, you just knew he was going to make it through. He wasn't going to get out without a scratch.
Yeah,
like he was going to be fine because he's sitting there and he's just walking around. Their bullets are flying by, and he tells the dudes to go out to surf, and the dudes are getting shot while surfing.
It's like, you're either fighting or you're surfing.
Yeah,
pick one. And mortars are coming in. And the guy's riding the wave, and the mortar comes. He falls off the board.
Does he lead the helicopter attack? Is that the flight of the Valkyries scene?
Yeah, he's in the helicopter.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Well, I think he's a great example of I think he's a good officer because he's there with the men, but obviously he has his vices. He's in the thick of it. He has his vices. As a lieutenant colonel, I think you're high enough to, be in a pretty substantial position of command, but he's in the fight the entire time. He's in the aerial assault of the flight of the Valkyrie scene. Yep. He's in one of the lead choppers. So he's there with the men, but he is brutal. But he has his vices, obviously surfing. Yep. Tactically, he's, what they said, he's like, we got to take that beach because that's good surf there. And he's like, that beach is crawling with VC.
Yeah,
and he's just Charlie, don't surf.
Yeah, he's like, dude, it's just really hairy in there, man.
Yeah.
Charlie, don't surf.
Yeah, he's like, we're taking that beach. But so he has his vices, which obviously has to do with surfing. And
I think he has the bravado and the confidence. And I don't know that, it's like one of those things where it's like, it maybe is not the best way to, like, the best mindset to have when you're thinking of tactics and strategy.
Yeah, no.
Because you think, oh, we'll just waltz over there, when the practical application of waltzing over there involves a lot of your troops dying.
Exactly. So I think that's like a common theme we're seeing with these real high brass, with like Patton and McChrystal and War Machine. It's just like, okay, once you get to a level, it's just like your men become chess pieces and they're very expendable, and it just becomes about what you want. Right. So it's like in Patton's case, he just wanted the glory of beating Montgomery.
Yeah.
And then, but in War Machine and McCannon's, he just wants to win, be the guy that won in Afghanistan. And then obviously in Apocalypse Now, Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore, he just wants to surf.
Yeah.
So whatever means it takes to surf, he's going to make happen regardless of how many troops are killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a little common theme we're seeing with like high military officers here,
We're getting
man.
some high level thinking here about the officer mindset.
The one movie on this list that like, honestly, I thought it was a great freaking movie. And, but like this officer, I think, had good intentions, but his intentions were for the men, but he still only was protecting his ego as an officer. And that's it. The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Classic.
1957. Great movie. First of all, 1957, I thought it was awesome.
Dude, I've seen this movie as well, man. We can talk an entire episode about this one. It's Alec Guinness.
Before
Obi-Wan
he was
Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Alec Guinness plays Colonel Nicholson, and he is a British commander.
Yep.
And he's commanding a unit that is captured by the Japanese in Burma, I think. It's either Burma or in Thailand.
Yeah.
Because they're talking a lot Siamese and talking in Thai, so I think it's in Thailand. But pretty much they're captured, and I thought this was the most officer thing. The colonel, what is the Japanese colonel? Colonel Kato.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kato wants them to build, the prisoners to build a bridge across the River Kwai so that basically Japan has access from Rangoon to Bangkok. They're basically providing supplies. So at first, they're under a real big time constraint, and the bridge they've planned with the Japanese engineers is like not going well, and they need the manpower. And Colonel, I want to say Colonel. I'll just say Colonel. I don't remember what it is, but it's Colonel Kato's like, all men are going to work, even officers. And Colonel Nicholson is like, well, good old chap, this is, according to the Geneva Convention, no officers will do manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
And
because the whole time he's been throwing, like, Geneva, like he knows all the rules. The doctrine.
He's a man of the rules.
Yeah.
That's all he cares about is the rules, right?
Yep.
So basically, Commander Kato's like, all officers...
Saito.
Colonel
Saito.
Saito, thank you.
Yeah.
Colonel Saito's like, no, all officers will work. And he's like, nope, none of my officers will work. And Colonel Saito, like, threatens to kill them all on a firing line.
Yep.
And they're just standing there, and finally, like, the medic comes over, and he's like, you just gonna kill these people?
Yeah.
And then he gets put in this box for, like, about a month.
The heat box. In the middle of the jungle, yeah.
Yeah, so he's, like, trying to break him, and he's like, your officers will work. And they're, like, trying to talk sense into him, and he's like, if you don't work, I'll make everybody in the sick bay work, and they will die, and that'll be on you. And, like, he doesn't budge. He's just like, well, no, my officers will not work. It clearly states in the Geneva Convention, officers will not do manual labor. But finally, he's just like, okay, because Colonel Saito, if he doesn't get this bridge built, he's going to have to kill himself.
Yep, literally.
Yeah. He's like, I literally have till May 12th. We have a couple months left. You need to build a bridge. And he basically just gives Colonel Nicholson all the reins because he realizes the position he's in. He's just like, you do it. Officers won't work. Just build the bridge. So basically, Nicholson takes over, and he's just like, even though we're POWs, like, there's a really funny saying in the movie that I started laughing really hard because he's just like, what he's talking to the officers, and he's just like, well, if the men don't have work, wouldn't it be true that we'd create work for the men to do? And all the officers like, yeah, splendid. Yeah, because they're all British and shit, but it's like 100% true. Like, if the men aren't doing something, they're going to come up with something for the men to do. So he's like, might as well be building this bridge. It's great for morale.
Yeah.
And so he basically goes full throttle into building this bridge, and in Nicholson's mind, it only is about the men, right? He's like, this is good for the men. Look at them. They're happy. They're being treated well because they're working great. But in a way, he gets so invested into building this bridge because to him, it's a representation of what the British soldiers are all about.
Yeah.
But from the outside perspective, you're like, you are 100% collaborating with the enemy right now. You are giving the enemy tactical advantage. You are giving, but he doesn't see that. He thinks he's doing the men like a favor by making them work so hard on this bridge. And like, it's a beautiful bridge by the end of the movie.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously they're POWs and they don't know what's going on the outside because the British commandos are coming in to blow that son of a...
Yeah, William Holden starts off in the camp and he ends up escaping, and then he kind of gets politically...
As Commander Scheer.
Commander Scheer,
who is actually not a commander. He actually just stole the uniform off a dead commander and just took his identity because he thinks... he's like, the officers get treated way better in POW camps, but he was dead wrong because he got... put with Colonel Saito. He escapes. He gets picked up by the British commandos, and they know he's actually just like a petty officer, like second class. And so they're like, we know, and we told the Navy, so if you go to the Navy, he's like, the Navy really just gave you to us, so we need someone with experience that's been there. And he's like freaking out. He's like, I'm not an officer. He's like, oh, you are now. You're a major. He's like, we just made you a major, so you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
But no, that movie was... I think it was great. It was super good. And the last scene
clenches the whole thing.
Oh, man. I was like screaming at my TV. Because, I mean, in the last scene, spoilers, folks, you knew they were coming. The last scene, Colonel Nicholson is like inspecting the bridge and he sees the line going to the explosives that they rigged because the river goes down.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is this? So he brings Colonel Saito down. He's like inspecting the thing and he like finds the mine trap and the guy there with the igniter. And he's like, help! Someone help! And it's just like, dude.
What? He doesn't even
realize that he's like totally on the Japanese side right now.
Yep.
And then he's like, he sees the British commander. He's like, sir, it's the British commando. We're going to blow up the bridge. And he starts fighting with them. And he's like, somebody help! Like trying to kill this guy. And then he gets shot. The guy that was supposed to blow the bridge gets shot.
Holden,
yeah, he gets shot. And then he stands up and he looks at the initiator and he's like, what have I done?
Yep.
And then he gets blown up by the other British guy who has the mortar.
Yeah.
He blows him up and then he falls on the thing and blows the bridge.
Falls on the plunger and blows up the whole bridge. It's so good.
It's so good because I was like, what are you doing? Even though it was a 1957 movie, if it was remade today. Like, oh my, I think it would be a great movie.
Yeah.
The only thing that was on my mind was because, like, he's like, oh, Colonel Saito said that the first train out of, I think it was, what was going on? He's like, all the sick POWs wouldn't have to walk to the next camp. They were going to get in the train. And get basically shipped over there on the train. But they blow the bridge up and the train, like, basically falls off the mountain. And I'm like, wait, weren't there like sick like POWs in there? And
no, those were Japanese. Those were Japanese troops. If I recall.
Those were the first train that went
they were
over?
coming the opposite. They were coming towards them, and I think the first shipment was like an honorable, like amazing.
Just making
the Japanese
sure, like
across the bridge, christening the
bridge, like a parade, like christening.
Exactly.
But then that was the one thing I was like, oh my god, I'm like, oh my god, they just killed like 50 to 100 POWs.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it was a bunch of Japanese soldiers coming in to reinforce.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, that was a great one. I mean, and that's all officers too, because the entire thing is just like, it's really good.
Yep.
I think it's super good. It's all about, he's like, well, without rules, there is chaos. And it's the most officer movie I've ever seen in my life. But I think it does, it's extremely deserving to be on this list. If you haven't seen The Bridge on the River Kwai, take 3 hours of your time. It's 2 hours and 47 minutes, I think.
Back when people had attention spans back in the 50s.
Yeah. Or it's like, you want to go to the movie and actually spend all day there?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. But yeah. What do you got, man?
I'd like to do, we got a couple here towards the end of the list. Kind of just one that I don't know if you're familiar with. Major Fambro from Dances with Wolves.
Oh,
1990, Kevin Costner.
It's been a while since I've seen that. And he's the main character, right?
Well, no. Kevin Costner's Lieutenant John Dunbar is the main character, but he's in the Civil War. And there's an amazing scene where he does the self-sacrifice. He rides across the field with the horse because he thinks he's going to lose his leg and he doesn't want to die. Or he wants to die on his own terms. So he rides across the field. The rebel soldiers are shooting at him. They miss. They say, hey, come on back, boy. We'll get you. And he's like, all right, and he goes back and he does the thing where he puts his hands out and he's just ready to be shot. And all the dudes are trying. And then what they don't realize is that the Union soldiers have crept up on him. And, man, they just overrun the rebel position. Yeah. So he actually gets an award and he gets his leg saved. And the guy says, listen, I'll give you any posting you want. And he says, I want to go to the frontier before it's gone. I want to go out where nobody is and out to the wild, away from all this. So on his way out there, he comes to the last major post before the wilderness, before there's like almost nothing. He's like Indian country and stuff. Yeah. And he comes to Major Fambreau, Mary Chaikin, played by Maury Chaikin. It's just it's a weird, I don't know what the purpose of his character serves, like within the broad scheme of like the movie, maybe just like being out in the like out away from everybody to the point where you start to go insane. Like there's just no purpose there and you don't understand why you're there.
You're just alone.
You're just alone. And so he's this major and he's insane, essentially. Really? Yeah. He calls him like Sir Knight. And like he's like reading his orders and stuff, and Kevin Costner's like so respectful and stuff like that. But like he's being like impudent, and he's like, I ascertained that you are an Indian fighter. And he's like, sir. And he's like, well, you want to go out to the furthest reaches. Obviously, you're an Indian fighter. I did not attain to this position by being stupid, And he's just like, and he's just. Kevin Costner's like, okay, can I get out of here?
He's like a Kurtz. He's like a Colonel Kurtz.
Yeah, he's super lost it. Like, and as Kevin Costner, he like scribbles nothing like on a paper. Like he's just moving his hand. He's like, this note will give you safe passage through many a dark and dangerous territory. And he like folds it up to like nothing and gives it to him. Yeah. And as Kevin Costner's leaving, he stands up and he says, Lieutenant. He stands up and he's pissed. He's like, I've pissed my pants and no one can do anything about it. And Kevin Costner's just like, okay. And then he leaves. Man. And, bye, and then sir. As he's like going off, like with his ride out to the wilderness, it cuts back to Major Fambreau. And he says, the king is dead. Long live the king. And he takes a gun and he blows his brains out.
Oh, my God. What was the relevance of this officer?
I don't know. Like, I just like, even looking back, I watched it again, that scene specifically last night. And it's just like, I think it's just one of those things where it's somebody who is like the pointlessness of your posting. Like somebody going to like, you don't ever want to be a young guy and posted to South Korea because there's nothing to do. There's,
except drink a lot of soju.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you go out and you get with the juicy girls and you drink a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up a good point. It's just like you feel so bad for these people that especially in today's army where deployments are very few and far in between. It's like, why? You kind of feel bad for the people enlisting now because it's like, okay, at least in my opinion, a lot of people enlist because they want to do the job. And if you can't do the job, that builds a lot of spite.
Yeah, resentment, bitterness, pointlessness, purposelessness.
Yeah. You in a way lose your mind. If you're not doing what you signed up to do, you lose your mind. You feel like you're wasting time, and it's just you're waiting for the clock to run out, essentially. Yeah. And that clock is your DD-214. But no, I think it was worth putting in there. Definitely, it just shows that like if you're not being able to do what you signed up for, you're gonna blow your brains out.
Yep.
Figuratively and literally.
Well,
let's do one more.
One more?
Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
Okay, let's do one more. Ooh, it's a tough choice. We got a couple left on the list. Let's go out with a classic. Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. Lieutenant Dan, ice cream,
Lieutenant Dan. Happy New Year,
I think
Lieutenant Dan.
Gary Sinise's most iconic roles because he even had a USO style band called the Lieutenant Dan Band that he would do USO tours with.
Yeah, he's he loves the troops.
Very loves the troops.
Yeah, that dude is awesome.
Yeah, I met him once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Let me hear that story.
I did a day of background work on CSI New York, which was his show back in the day. Right before I joined the army. That's gonna be another T-shirt. I
met him once. Yeah, there you go. We'll make a sticker.
I met him
Wait
once.
for those.
With the little grenade, with the like a microphone.
Pop Culture Field Manual podcast. I met him once.
And so anyway, I'm doing background, and this is about as exciting as all my other stories, where it's like I'm playing like a scientist in a lab, and he's doing the scene like right next to me. My job is just to go back and forth during the scene. And then during, in between takes, we're just kind of hanging out, and I kind of look over, and he's like, how's it going?
Wow. That story knocked the socks right off of me, dude. That's crazy. Your network is absolutely.
It's all gonna pay off someday, Suggs. It's all gonna pay off. All these memes are gonna come together, and it's gonna make my career, or something's gonna happen to become president or something.
Yeah. And Garrison needs to be like, that guy looks really familiar. Oh my God. I met him on CSI.
Oh my God, come and be in my movie. Come on my USO tour.
I remember, friend. Hey, how have you been? It's been so long.
I remember you. You were that extra back in late 2004.
Yeah, you asked me if
we
I
were
had
in the
any
lab together.
Yeah, you asked me if you had any advice to give to a struggling actor. Oh my God. Well, yeah, no, Gary Sinise is awesome. He has there's the Gary Sinise Foundation, which is a charity and veteran service organization that offers a variety of programs and services and events for wounded veterans. Yeah. Gary Sinise is absolutely the man.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Dan was such a great character. Forrest Gump was a great movie, but
he was a good officer.
Yeah. He had a relative die. In every military family had a relative die in every major conflict from since the Revolutionary War.
Exactly. Get down.
And he wanted
Shut up.
Yeah, he's like
he wanted to die in combat. He wanted to die in combat.
Yeah.
That was his goal, but he didn't get it.
No, and he was real bitter for a long time. Yeah,
until he found purpose on that small shrimp boat.
Yep. Yelling at God,
There you go.
And then he gets his legs back, and he marries a Vietnamese lady.
Yeah, there you go.
Finds peace.
We love you long time. You got boyfriend Vietnam.
You
got boyfriend Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan for the rest of your life.
Nice. Well, that's a good one to leave off on. Lieutenant Dan was a great representation of officers that you do want with the experience, charisma, and the leadership capability. So out with a bang. Salute to you. Gary Sinise, you are the man.
You are the man.
But I think that's a good stopping point for a nice little transition over to our fan question. And this fan question comes to us from Kevin R. McWilliamson. Very interesting last name. Via email, and he asks, what's a cool story you have about a good or bad officer from your time in?
We kind of did this in the beginning.
We kind of did this in the beginning.
Already, inadvertently.
Yeah. Oh, man.
The one I have that I don't think I've mentioned too much before, but when we were in reception battalion, we were kind of entered into this kind of morale boosting program where a senior officer would kind of sponsor a basic training battalion or platoon or whatever, company. And just kind of visit us every once in a while and kind of give us pep talks. And then what they gave us was it was a special set of dog tags, 2 sets of dog tags.
Sure,
he would have one. And then I was chosen to be the holder of the special dog tags.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. I looked for my dog. I looked for him last night. I couldn't find him, so I can't remember his name. But it was cool, and then of course, because I had and how I got him was kind of interesting. We were doing a big assembly, and he was going to come say hi. So they needed somebody to present the company to him, to stand in front and hand it off.
Sure.
I said, okay, we're gonna have a push-up contest. Who wants to do it? And so I volunteered, and I got the most push-ups in 2 minutes. So that's how I became later known as the General's daughter.
Oh, nice.
Because all the drill sergeants knew I had the dog tags. Like, where's the General's daughter? General's daughter, get up here.
Way to gaslight yourself, dude.
Exactly. I volunteered for everything.
Oh, that's good. You're a good soldier.
I get to hold the guide on during our graduation ceremony.
Cool.
March out in front.
What an honor.
Cool. So he was a good guy, and just a fun little memory from my basic training days. I thought it was kind of a neat, when you become an officer, you got to come up with those ideas. And so that was probably his idea or somebody's idea. We can do this morale thing. You can visit the troops and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Well, for Rangers, it specifically says in the 4th stanza of the Ranger Creed, gallantly will I show the world that I'm a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My neatness of dress, care of equipment, and courtesy to superior officers shall set the example for others to follow. That doesn't happen. Yeah, so I mean, at least ranger officers definitely. But I don't really have a specific story. But I remember at any time we would leave the compound, like I never had experience with like brand new lieutenants. Like butter bars did not exist in Ranger Regiment. They either needed to come from, they needed to be battle ready, and they needed to have command experience. So like a lot of these guys that came from the big army have already done like company commander time or like XO time in the big army, and then they'd come and take a platoon in regiment. So I never had like the actual butter bar experience until I got to the National Guard. But in regiment, anytime we would leave the compound, like we would have to be in our like we just call them pins and patches, which was like beret and your clean uniform and whatnot. But anytime we were out, like all the officers, like you have to salute each other. But we never did that. So I remember specifically, like I had a butter bar passing by me, and like I was out on my way to the library to do like a course, and he like sprung to a salute, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, young man?" And I was like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And just like walked by him and didn't salute him anything. He stopped and like turned around. He's like, "Hey, what? Wait, what? Hey, what?" And I was just like an E4 at the time, and it was just like, yeah, we just didn't do that. It was just not cool. I mean, it wouldn't be out of the out of the realm of possibility to literally to literally tell them stay in your fucking lane. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that was negative experiences with officers, just like not ever saluting them. I mean, we got in a lot of trouble, like in Korea. We had a couple guys like walking around in just fields because we don't wear like we don't have like name tapes or patches on. We're just in cry uniforms, and like some officers want to be saluted, and like we don't fucking salute you. And like we had a couple complain and be like, "They're not saluting me," and whatnot, and they just be like, "Fuck off," But yeah, I don't really have like a really negative example of a story, just like small stuff like that. But yeah, we hope that answers your question there, Kevin. But this is a great time to finish off this lovely podcast with a game, and I have the game here.
Cameron is has reigned supreme as the game master for many a week.
Yes, and this game is called Operation Iteron.
Iteron.
Because all operations need a really cool name, and I thought that was super cool because the Army loves acronyms, and Iteron stands for. Is that even a real operation name?
Iteron, I get it.
Iteron. Operation Iteron. Is that really really
you
an
made
operation?
It an acronym too, man.
Yeah, I did.
Good for you.
So it is no secret that during World War II, many different operations were planned and executed by Allied forces against the axis of evil. On top of that, operations were given badass names to complement their strategic importance. For this game, I will provide you with the name of an operation during World War II, and you will tell me if it was a real op or fake op name that I made up. Easy enough.
Nice. Okay.
We will see. Kind of the same format of the last game, but I don't care.
I like that this one I have a 50-50 shot every time.
There you go.
The odds are in my favor.
But, as always, we got to start off with an easy warm-up just to get you a warm and fuzzy. So here we go. Operation Overlord.
Real. That's the invasion of North, the invasion of Europe by the Allied forces.
Absolutely. Real op, the Allied campaign to enter the European continent. So there you go, riding high.
Simple. Also the name of a pretty cool World War II movie.
Yes, about zombies and Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, here we go. Round one, Operation Cockade.
Cockade?
Cockade.
Oh my God, I see a gleam in your eye. I don't want to believe it. I think you just want me to say cockade a bunch. Cockade. It's gotta be, because that sounds like and blockade. It sounds like you combine those two words. I'm gonna say fake.
That is incorrect. Oh. Operation Cockade was a real op. It was part of a multi-phase global scheme to deceive the Axis as to Allied intentions. Cockade postulated an invasion of occupied Europe in 1943.
Wow.
Yeah, so not only is this a fun game, but this is also educational. That's the name of the game.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. There are no losers in these games we play on PCFM. At least the ones I write. But anyways, there you go, Chris. All right, round two. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Operation Sand Crab.
Operation Sand Crab. Well, it seems legit. I can't say I've heard of any. Sounds like a beach operation. Sand crab. I'm gonna say it's real.
That is incorrect, my friend. I made that one up.
No, it's so simple.
It's so simple yet very deceiving.
Oh no.
Yeah, it sounded like it would be a real one.
Yeah, it's not looking good, folks.
It's not looking good. But you know what? You learned something.
I learned
and that's
something.
you are wrong.
I learned that I don't know many World War II operational names.
Okay, well, anyways, let's keep it going, man. Let's see if you can get this one. Round 3, Operation Torch.
Operation. Oh, I mean, this is so general.
That's
So
one thing
general.
that I found that I'm like, wow, all of these are extremely general.
Except for Overlord, these are the most unrecognizable general names ever. But Chris would say, that's the point.
That's the point.
It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be able
Didn't
to
you
go
hear
either
in my
way.
intro dialogue that I said easy enough? We will see.
And it turned out to be not easy. No.
Yeah, no.
Operation Torch could go either way. I'm going to try to play the odds on this one. I'm going to say it's a real one.
You are correct, my
Ooh.
friend. Real Operation Torch in November of 1942 was a compromise operation that met the British objective of securing victory in North Africa while allowing American armed forces the opportunity to engage in the fight against Nazi Germany on a limited scale. Yeah.
Nice.
So it seemed like, at least watching Patton, which has to do with Africa, like the entire beginning's all in Africa, it was like mainly British owned, pretty much real estate there, but the Americans were like still doing some fighting. So yeah, I mean, at least they let them have their fun. It seemed like, but cool, man, you got that one. Things are looking up at this point.
All right, we're on an upswing.
Are you ready for the next round?
Do it.
Round 4, Operation Bolero.
Bolero. You know, I really love that song. That's a classic song. It's
Oh yeah, based off that tune. I 100%.
See, now this is kind of we're getting to Princess Bride territory because I have to take what I know from you. Are you the kind of cultured man that would introduce a word like bolero, or would you just read it off and then put it into a game? I'm gonna say, because I like the name so much, not using any kind of strategy, I'm gonna say it's a real thing.
You are correct, my friend. Real and that was the building of Allied forces in Britain prior to Overlord.
Oh, okay, the buildup.
Yeah, the buildup.
Okay.
Yeah, basically just concentrating forces, getting ready for Overlord.
Wow, man.
Yeah, Bolero.
Can you
Very
believe
cool.
it? Can you believe that buildup, man? Imagine
was
what
a
they must have
massive-
felt right before they went
Amassing
in.
of forces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Imagine those living conditions.
Yeah, cramped. Yeah.
Cramped. Yeah, we're talking music festival. We're talking Woodstock 2001.
Yeah.
Or is it 2001, that documentary on Netflix right
Yeah,
now?
the one where it all fell apart.
Yeah, where it all fell apart because they did not expect that many people to come.
Yeah.
Anyways. All right, man. Doing good. You
All
got the last 2 right. Are you ready to keep pushing on?
Let's do it. Let's sally forth.
Yeah, get up that hill. I don't care how many men it costs. Round 5. Operation Tea Time.
Operation Tea Time.
Operation Tea Time.
Oh, just ridiculous enough to be a real thing,
Oh no, the Brits love their tea.
They do. It might be a little too on the nose, though, so maybe it's not. I feel like maybe I'm tending towards not, because, let's try to keep it concise. We don't want to make it too long-winded. Tea time is 2 syllables. It's too long. It's a fake operation.
You were correct, my friend. I made that one up.
All right, good.
Okay,
We're doing good. The averages
You're coming
are getting
back.
higher.
Your
Yeah.
averages are getting higher, and with that, we will continue into round 6, fast and furiously. Operation Sauerkraut.
Operation Sauerkraut. I mean, obviously, this sounds very believable because sauerkraut, Germans.
Not to mention, they called them Krauts.
Yeah, they call them Krauts, so maybe it's like a poisoning campaign against the German soldiers, sauerkraut. But that's probably a little too on the nose. Actually, I'm going to, not knowing anything more about sauerkraut other than it's German and it's a food, I'm going to play the averages. I'm going to say that this is not a real operation.
You are correct. Once again, my friend, way to see through my curtain of deception. Oh, man. Maybe I shouldn't have gone on top of the nose too much. All right. I should have done
You got to get real, like Operation.
Should have did like Operation Mercury or
yeah.
Jupiter or something.
Yeah, right. Operation
that would be very
Doorknob,
believable.
Yeah, Mercury or Jupiter, that's totally believable.
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Okay. All right, man. Well, you're finishing strong. We have one more round. Tell me, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, for all the marbles. Operation Neptune.
Oh, this sounds like a real one. I actually think, okay, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to tell you why. I think that this is the operation to break, I think it's to break the German Enigma machine. Operation Neptune, where they got everybody together, and this was the operation to break the code, the secret code maker machine for the Germans.
Is this with the movie?
The Imitation Game.
The Imitation Game.
I'm going to say that, but my answer is that it's real.
Okay. I'm going to say you're half right because it is a real operation.
Okay.
But not the one you think it is. Okay. So good. You got it. You got it.
All right.
Honestly, I would have saved a little bit of breath. But
I just wanted people to know that I'm thinking about it.
You're thinking. But yes, it was a real operation. And Operation Neptune was the naval phase of the Normandy invasion.
Oh,
so,
pretty on the nose.
Yeah. So briefly stated, its goal was to deliver Allied armies to the D-Day beaches where the ground phase, Operation Overlord, would begin at the water's edge.
Overlord was the ground phase. Neptune was the water phase. Good.
Yes. There you go, my friend.
Hey,
way to finish strong.
We stumbled out of the gate, but we got to the finish
There
line.
you go. What, you went 4 for 3? 3 for 4?
I thought it was like
4 for 3.
Yeah. 4
there
for
you
3.
go. I mean, what is that, like 65%? I don't know. I don't know.
That's still passing,
I don't math
baby.
too good.
Still
Oh, yes. There you go. Well, good job, Izzy. You finished strong. I'm proud of you.
Good games, Cameron. You bring in the good games, but I got something for you next week.
Okay, I'm excited to play. And we hope you are excited to tune into next week's episode. Folks, we hope you had a great time with this all-officer episode. Please do yourself a favor. Go watch the River Across...
the Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, on the River Kwai. It's a great movie. Check out our Instagram. Check out our Patreon. Got a lot of good things going on. Check out our brand new merchandise. Check out Buy Me a Coffee. You guys know the deal. With that,
cue music.
It's important to properly dispose of unwanted medication or sharps. MedProject offers free and convenient disposal options near you. To learn more, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org.